Hello there, BookTube. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. I've got no rhythm. And today, because it's my 100th episode, I thought I'd let someone else introduce me.
This is Jeopardy! Now entering the studio are today's contestants. A student from Edgware, Daniel Savitt.
I do have the whole full 25 minutes of that show, and maybe for my 1000th episode I will post that. But what I thought I'd do, I've never done it, this is 100 videos, but I'm going to do an entire bookshelf tour, which I filmed on my iPhone, so apologies if it makes anyone seasick, but that's what you're going to see from here on in. So thanks for watching any or all or whatever you've done of my videos. I really appreciate it. It's been super fun. My biggest issue when I started was whether I would be able to do this consistently, and so far this is number 100 and I'm still having fun. I hope you are too. Take care. Enjoy this bookshelf tour. Bye. Let's start over here. We'll go all the way up to the top shelf, which is a lot of prayer books and various versions of the Old Testament, and then some books about Judaism. So there's a prayer books for different festivals. Yeah, so that's that shelf, and I've got another one next to that is also some remainders. So those are on the top shelf, and I usually climb up and get a chair when I need that stuff. But starts down here, we have the first shelf of fiction. Starting on the far left there, you've got Megan Abbott, and some poetry, a bunch of Peter Ackroyd, some Douglas Adams. Well, I seem to be missing the Hitchhikers series. When I have them, I think I have the first 3 Hitchhikers. I had the 4th. It was given as a present, but that went missing many years ago, and never read the 5th one. Room and Alarm, and then over Martin Amis over there, and there is more Martin Amis behind there, I believe. Yeah, and this is where you start already seeing things double stacked. Let's go down to this shelf where we start with Deepa Anapara and Jim Patrol, and we've got some stuff there. There's Kate Atkinson and Margaret Atwood, and there's more Margaret Atwood again behind there. If I take out the Testaments, and you can see there's some more Margaret Atwood hiding behind there. I'll be able to get this back in now, okay. And then I've just got this sort of out of order, but I've got Maya Angelou and Jane Austen, one on top of the other. I kind of like that juxtaposition, and ending the shelf on Charlotte Auslander. Next shelf we've got a bunch of Paul Auster. Then bits and pieces, starting with James Baldwin. There's 2 J.G. Ballard sort of autobiographical stuff, End by the Sun and Kindness of Women. Pat Barker's epic trilogy, a bit of Julian Barnes, other bits and pieces. That's that shelf. Okay, down here we start with Joanne Beard, and then we've got also bits and pieces, a bit of Alan Bennett there. There's recent reads and Captain Corelli, of course, and ending over here in the corner with Lawrence Block, and behind there is a ton more Lawrence Block. So I haven't got like 7 or 8 there, but there's another 30 odd behind there. I'm not going to reach out, believe me. And double stack behind is all the other Lawrence Blocks. Next shelf down, we carry on with Peter Biskin. So we had Easy Rider, Raging Bulls there, and here we have Down and Dirty Pictures. So more Biskin. There's some books from my childhood, the Captain Cobweb series, a bit of William Boyd, some other stuff, and then they've got the Brontes there, then the Charlie Brooker. Started with Crystal Brookmire, I don't know if I'll continue, and other bits of it, Natasha Brown's Assembly, and the Lenny Bruce on the end. And then right down here on the ground we have smattering of Bill Bryson, and there's the Master and the Margarita. We've got some Anthony Burgess, Melvin Burgess, Tim Burgess, not related as far as I know, a bit of Gordon Byrne, Anna Burns' Milkman, James M. Cain, Peter Carey. Right down the bottom we have CDs, which were never supposed to be unpacked when we put the shelves in. I put all the CDs away in the box, and then the kids, I don't have a CD player, so these are just some legacy CDs. I'll just pick one out at random. Oh look, there's a bit of Morrissey, very good, and also some Schubert, which I think that's my wife's, I believe, some Garfunkel, yeah, War Party, some other stuff. Okay, let's take it all the way back over the top. So We see at the top there's more Machzorim, Sidurim, prayer books, and various versions of the Old Testament in different forms, and some Mishnah Berurah back there. And then so starting up here, we've got some more Peter Carey. And it's a complete Raymond Carver. There's Willow Cather. I think one of them's out. A bunch of Michael Chabon going into Raymond Chandler, and what's that? Jade Chang and Yung Chang. Again, no relation as far as I believe. Down here we've got a smattering of Chaucer from my university days. Then some Ted Chang, his two collections, that first Lee Child, which was enough for me. Then there's Susanna Clarke, both Jonathan Strange and Piranesi, and some other bits and pieces going here. The first two volumes of the Hunger Games, because one below that we've got the rest of the Hunger Games. We've got that complete run there, James Fenimore Cooper, Hawkeye, 5-volume Penguin Classics, Elvis Costello, Noel Coward, 3 Jim Crace books, a bit of Michael Crichton, who there's and a prayer book on top of that. That was, just to keep it handy. And then there's 3 Justin Cronin sort of neo-vampire weird books that were kind of fun, good romp in the end, and a bit of the racist anti-Semite Roald Dahl at the end, some Roald Dahl adult stuff there, House of Leaves, of course, a bit of Darwin, then we've got some Daniel Defoe, A Naked Singularity, a bit of Don DeLillo, nice collection of Don DeLillo, some other bits and pieces, and a little bit of Dickens there, and a bit of Donaldson there with some more behind, and the reason that the pile's low, so I've lent 2 books to someone else. Dickens continues, that's all Dickens I've got there, and then Didion, you've got a bit of Dostoevsky, nice collection of Roddy Doyle, some Dumas, and some other interesting standalones. Down here we have George Eliot, Bret Easton Ellis, there's the bloody Ducks, bloody New Report, a whole bunch of James Elroy, more James Elroy behind there, as Quaker Maisie, and some other stuff, bit of Eugenides going there, and then I don't know what got down the bottom. I don't know what's in these boxes, but there's some photo albums, and there's a copy of Michael Rosen's sad book, and so then we go all the way up to, so there's the couch. Sorry, I should step back and let you take a look at that. So that's what we've just been looking at, and then there's a couch, but above the couch there are 2 shelves, so I will try and capture these. So we've got Jeffrey Eugenides, that giant Evanovich, and there's the rest of them, although I've read like 7 of them, so there's 4 more behind there, I guess. Then we've got the Crimson Petal on the right, a whole bunch of amphetamine. Maybe I'll stand on I'll go on the couch. There's some Anne Fadiman. I must have lent Birdsong to someone. I've got that horrible Charlotte Gray. The Ferrantes, a bit of Joshua Ferris, a bit of Richard Feynman, and some other bits and pieces, some Henry Fielding, some Carrie Fisher. I've enjoyed each of those. They're not great, but Carrie Fisher goes into Fitzgerald, who goes into Fitzhugh, and then we get to Fleming. There's the James Bond books and these beaten up old pan editions. Turnhouse, that was a big book a couple of years ago, it sort of disappeared from everyone's memory. Horrible Gone Girl, some Ian Forsters, and then some other bits. There, Franzen, of course. So we'll zoom out on the Franzen collection over there. Okay, I'm off the shelf. Wait, maybe I'm going to bring a chair over. 1 second. So I'll up here and go to this top shelf. Okay, so what do we got here? Some Esther Freud. Yeah, I read 3 of those. Then Neil Gaiman's sort of prose, so we'll see the comics in a second. Neil Gaiman, then there's Robert Galbraith's, the first 4, I haven't decided what I'm going to do the rest, and a whole bunch of Ellen Gilchrist's. This is the top shelf, so the rooms, I just stacked them up like that. Love Ellen Gilchrist. And we got down here Alex Garland. The Beach was kind of a absolute necessity to read back in the day, and then I read Coma, which I don't remember much about, and there's that. So I must have already lent the Gaskell I read last year. Okay, then Cold Comfort Farm, Neuromancer. There's some Malcolm Gladwell, some James Gleick, including that biography of Richard Feynman, which I adore. Yeah, I've definitely lent that first Glenn David Gold book to somebody. That's the second one. Yeah, Memoirs of a Geisha. These are big novels. There's Joe Gorry's first two in the Dan Kearney Associates. I bought the next two quite recently. Next shelf down, we've got fabulous Catherine Graham's autobiographies. Great, some Sarah Gran. Love Sarah Gran. She's got a new book out. There's some Robert Graves going into Graham Greene. Germaine Greer. There's those Groffs. David Grossman. Yeah, this is, I love looking at this. Okay, down here we have another prayer book here. Then Mohsin Hamid. Steve Hamilton's, loads more Steve Hamilton's behind. These are books for Grace After Meal, so when people come fresh about meal, we have some books to hand out. So that they can say that. Some Dashiell Hammett, the collection of Thomas Hardy's, stacked that way, with an extra on the side. And some other bits and pieces, Debbie Harry, L.P. Hartley, Kent Haroof. Okay, and down here we've got a spare pair of glasses and the St James Halls. I don't know what those, read those. I think they're big in the early noughts or the late 90s. A bit of Ben Hecht, Nathaniel Hawthorne there, my only Robert Heinlein, a book by Phil Hellmuth about poker, a bit of Hemingway, then some Mick Herron's I'm really enjoying, a bit of Hesse, a couple of Haas. Was Stormy Weather one of the ones I said I didn't read in that thing the other day? So it turns out I have read it. Bill Hicks, that Friends of Eddie Coyle, George V. Higgins, and then some Highsmiths. I think that's a standalone, and then 4 of the Ripley books, and then the last one down here, Seabiscuit, Nathan Hill's The Knicks, bit of Hitchens, just there's a lot of standalones. Oh, and then we've got Eleanor Oliphant going into a whole bunch of Nick Hornby books, and then some other stuff. Simon Hughes, 2 books on cricket there. There's the Bone People, Kerry Humes, the Bone People. All a bit of Huxley right at the end. Okay, let's go back up to the top shelf here. A little bit of John Irving, a whole bunch of Kazuo Ishiguro, and other bits and pieces. Is the only Howard Jacobson I've read. Some Henry James, doesn't get spoken about very much. And then there's that Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin, which I didn't really rate, Daisy Jones and the Six, which a lot of people read and loved, and it was okay. My daughter read it recently and loved it. And then there's Craig Johnson, the first 4 Lombard novels, and I'm going to pick those up, more of those sort of crime, set in Wyoming, or at least he's a Wyoming sheriff. They're quite fun. There's Daisy Judson, Dennis Johnson, no relation. Edward Jones, Lloyd Jones, Tayari Jones, no relation as far as I know. A bit of James Joyce, a little bit of Kafka, only one Kafka. What have we got here? Yeah, those 4 Duffy books by Dan Kavanagh. Dan Kavanagh was actually Julian Barnes, so he wrote these 4 books about this dodgy private eye in London under a pseudonym. We've got some Edgar Kerrett, a little bit of Mark Commode, hello to Jason Isaacs, and that's a couple of Philip Kerr books. Down here we have, there's my fart gun, which is pushing back my Kinsellas. Kinsella goes into Kipling, and then we have the complete run of Knausgaard there, and some other bits and pieces. I Love Dick. Nicole Krauss, I seem to be missing. I must have lent the most recent novel to somebody. Harry Kunzru, and then into Jhumpa Lahiri there at the end, and a bit more Jhumpa Lahiri. Next shelf down, a whole bunch of Joe Lansdale. I think there's some behind there as well. Maybe not. There's a bunch of Joe Lansdale. I've filed together the Larsens and the Lagerkrantz, seeing as they're all Elizabeth Salander, and they're kind of close to each other in the alphabet. And then I've got Dennis Lehane on the end, and there's some more Lehanes behind. That's just the first 4 Kenzie Gennaro books. Then we've got Luster, a bunch of Elmore Leonards, a bunch of Jonathan Leathams, a bunch of Primo Levy's, and then the Narnia series, C.S. Lewis. On the end, there's the Deborah Levy, there's the first 2, blue and yellow, and waiting for the red one to come back. Down here we have, that's graphic novels. They shouldn't really be here, but that's March by John Lewis. And the first 2, sorry, I lent all 3 to somebody, and the third one hasn't come back yet. A bunch of Michael Lewis, Ted Lewis, Carter, and what else we got? A couple of Kelly Links, some Laura Lippmans, which I'm kind of over. some Toby Litt, which I'm kind of over, some Sam Lipsyte, a couple of Penelope Lively's there, and a bunch of Attica Locke. What have we got up here? So this is over that's over the, I'll show you in a second. So up here we've got, there's the Railway Man, there's Audre Lorde, there's that Chris Claremont, George Lucas series, there's Larry Luiselli, there's a bunch of Lisa Lutz's, I've got all the Spellman files behind there, I don't know why I've done that. There's some John D. MacDonald's, that's a trilogy by Malcolm McKay, and some Norm Mailer, and some David Mamet. You don't see a lot about Norm Mailer or David Mamet on Facebook, but here they are. Okay, so that's what we've covered so far, which is taking us up to the L's, so A to L. We went over the arch, so that leads to the bedrooms right there. That's my bedroom door, open, and a bit of painting on the wall. And now we're going to start over here. So climb up here. Yeah, that's a painting, a portrait picture from my wedding. There's some Hilary Mantel's, Robert Parker's, and that's the complete Spencer run, like 3 massive stacks of Robert B. Parker's Spencer books. Down here we have a bunch of Marquez, so 100 Years of Solitude up to Memoirs of My Melancholy Whores. There's Life of Pi. There's the 6 original Armistead Maupin Tells the City, plus Maybe the Moon. Daphne du Maurier's the only du Maurier book that I've read, Rebecca. And then the McBains start, that's the 87th Precinct. There's 4, you can see there's a stack back there. And this is the most recent ones that I've read, so it's the first 40 of those, with Patrick McCabe shoved in the corner. Down here we have Amar McBride. I fear that might be the only Amar McBride I read. A couple of Colin McCann's, that Cormac McCarthy Border trilogy, and The Road, Tom McCarthy, a bit of Scott McCloud. There's more Scott McCloud, we'll see in a second. The first 2 of the Frank McCourt books, that horrible Val McDermid, a whole bunch of Gregory MacDonald, who I fear is not widely read, but outstanding, mostly forgotten, but terrific writer. Fletch, if you're only familiar with Fletch from the Chevy Chase movies, then I urge you, if you ever see a copy of that first Fletch book, which is called Fletch by Gregory MacDonald, go out and read it, you will have a ball. And some Ian McEwan's, and there's a few missing, like my copy of Amsterdam's gone missing, my top copy of Atonement has gone missing, so we've got those. Down here, a couple of more Sidurim, some Roger McGough, including that Penguin Modern Poets 10 with Adrian Henry, Roger McGough, and what was his name, Patton? It's Adrian Henry, Roger McGough, and Brian Patton, sorry Brian. Then some more Roger McGough, John McGregor, William McIlvenney, Lisa McInerney. Then I think I've got, yes, there's all 6 of the Sean Duffy, Adrian McKinty's, another Adrian McKinty, a bit of Melville. Yes, I've lent out that the first Daniel Miller's The 3 Rings, so that's Odyssey, which I read recently. What have we got there? Some John Stuart Mill, and a bunch of Arthur Miller. That plays his autobiography and his one novel. Down here, Chanel Miller, no relation, and Davis Miller, also no relation, and Derek B. Miller, pretty sure no relation. Then there's some Spike Milligan, some A. Milne, a bunch of Dennis Mina, and some more Denise Mina, more Denise Mina behind there. And that's the box where we keep all our keys, spare keys, car keys, keys to my mum's apartment in London, etc. David Mitchell at the end there. Down here I've got Mitford's, a bit of Timothy Moe, Laurie Moore, Jan Morris, a bit of Grant Morrison, a bit of Toni Morrison, no relation, Morshfegh, Moshfegh, a whole bunch of Walter Mosley, triple, it's all stacked behind there. Andrew Motion's Life of Philip Larkin, and some other bits and pieces, the only Murakami that I read there in the corner. Okay, what do we got? Here's the ladder. Let's go back and have a look where we're at. So we'll get the ladder out of the way and we'll look up at the top there. So we've got a Skippy Dies, a bit of Nabokov, and some other bits and pieces. Those 3 Patrick Ness, the Chaos Walking series, a bunch of stuff there. Some Jack O'Connell's, also sort of deeply forgotten. There's Ben Upgree's Famish Road, Booker Prize winner on the end. Barn 8, they're there. some P.J. Rourke, who I read in college, and then people thought I was a terrible Republican. I'm not. Well, I'm terrible, I'm just not a Republican. Helen Oyeyemi, Amos Oz, a bit of Ruth Ozeki, got her new one coming up. Cynthia Ozick. What have we got else? There's Dorothy Parker, that's great. There's Dr. Zhivago, wasn't overly impressed, a couple of Anne Patchetts. Then there's David Peace. Look, irritating, those first three all at one size, then 1983 is bigger, GB84 than Damn United, and that first Tokyo Zero. Whole bunch of George Pelecanos, there's more George Pelecanos behind that. I don't know how my copy of Special Topics in Calamity Physics got so beaten up. I think it just must have lent it to a bunch of people. Some Steven Pinker on the end. Van God Little is another Booker Prize winner. Down here we have Zen the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance next to the Bell Jar, next to George Plimpton's oral history about Truman Capote. There's Max Porter, True Grit. There's some Chaim Potok. The first two, Anthony Pohl in that Dance the Music of Time. I never read more than that. And maybe because I couldn't get two that matched, but I read the first two, that's years ago. I read those 30 plus years ago. I never went any further. There's Richard Powers, Heat and Dust by Ruth Jabvala, another Booker Prize winner. Bag of Vance. There's some Richard Price there. First three volumes. I love these volumes of Proust that come in, but I never, I struggled through all three of them and then just gave up. If I saw the fourth one in this edition, I may pick it up and try again, but I've forgotten everything that went before. Three totally mismatched volumes from Philip Pullman, and then Pushkin. Down to Putnam, My Only Pynchon, a whole bunch of Ian Rankins and more Ian Rankins behind there. Celestine Prophecy, all-time worst book I've ever read. There's a Dice Man Falling Apart, and other bits and pieces. There's the Interview with the Vampire, the only one I read. There's Andrew Ridgely's book about George. Some John Ridley, also no relation. And Tom Robbins. Is there another Tom Robbins? Yeah, I read two Tom Robbins. There's Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, which was a film with Uma Thurman. And then down here we have this other Tom Robbins. The Box Office Poison, also a graphic novel, don't know why that's it here. Bit of Johnny Rogan's Morrissey and Marr. There's Sally Rooney, although I seem to be missing Conversation with Friends. There's a bunch of Philip Roth, a whole bunch of Philip Roths. And then Harry Potter, sort of incomplete Harry Potter there. I think the first two volumes were missing, so I've got Azkaban onwards in various editions, and then the two charity giveaways. And what's behind there? Oh, I think the Casual Vacancy is behind there. Okay, let's go up here now. This sort of out of alphabetical order, but just because they're ginormous, they take up so much space, I've got the 3 volumes, the Neil Stevenson volumes. I've got Cryptonomicon, which is the first Neil Stevenson I read, and Reamdy, which is fabulous. There's my son and his beautiful bride at their wedding. There's some Damon Runyon, never spoken about very much at all. Love Damon Runyon, love those 2 collections that Melbourne Modern Classics did. Maybe one day I'll talk about them. A bunch of Rushdie, and I think there's some more Rushdie behind there. Swamplandia, a bunch of Oliver Sacks, some Jonathan Safran Foer. There's J.D. Salinger there as well. And oh yes, Marjane Satrapi also should be in the graphic novel section. Okay, and down here we start with George Saunders. So I think that's a pretty full set of George Saunders. Maybe a few bits and pieces missing. And then sometimes there's Austerlitz, some Will Self. Doesn't get spoken about very much. 4, so I read 3, and yeah, there's a bunch of Will Self there. 4 books by Will Self. Anyone read Will Self? And a bunch of Vikram Seth. Still waiting for that sequel to A Suitable Boy. Elif Shafak going into George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion on the end there. Down here is a biography of Rupert Murdoch. William Shawcross came to talk to us when I was in college, so I went and bought the book. That's 30 years ago at least. 92, yeah, exactly 30 years ago. Randy Shields, Carol Shields. We need to talk about Kevin, a bit of Steingart. There's David Simon. There's starting with Daniel Silva. I'm going to put the rest behind there as I carry on reading the series. A bit of Schoen, if that's how you pronounce his name, the Icelandic author. Henrietta Lacks, Jane Smiley's Thousand Acres was a big book that's a retelling of King Lear, and that doesn't get spoken about. And then a bunch of Ali Smiths, and E.T. Smith is a cricketer, and Giles Smith is a music journalist, and Gorky Park, Martin Crew Smith, down into Zadie Smith, bunch of Zadie Smiths. Tobias Smollett's Humphrey Clinker, I love the juxtaposition there, and David Solwell's Longitude was a big book. A whole bunch of stuff into this Bruce Springsteen's book, a whole bunch of Richard Starks. There's probably more behind it. Is that the whole lot? I don't know if there's more Richard Starks. I think there's more Richard Starks behind there. And that's the complete Parker series that I've got going on there. And there's those two Patrick Melrose books by Edwardson Auburn. Lawrence Stern and Tristram Shandy. That's the copy, my original copy of Tristram Shandy. Uncle Tom's Cabin snuck in on the end. Down here we have, let me sit for this. So we have some Wallace Strobies. There's Elizabeth Strout. I've got 3 Elizabeth books by Elizabeth Strout, who knew? Some other bits and pieces. Oh, some Graham Swift. I like a bit of Graham Swift. My absolute darling was a book, came out 2 or 3 years ago, a big book. I really liked it, and it's sort of faded into obscurity. Amy Tan seemed to be missing the kitchen, God's Wife. That's my original copy of the Joy Luck Club that I read on a beach, and sort of was a big impetus for me for reading literary fiction. Also missing my copy of Secret History, so I've got The Little Friend there and The Goldfinch. So Donna Tartt's Secret History, which also was a major milestone for me in reading literature, seems to have gone missing. Okay, I'll take you up here. Sorry, my finger going in there. Let's go to the top shelf here because this is all reference books. Some of these, so these 4 volumes here are the all my ticket stubs. So it's all my, all the theatre and movies and all things that I've collected over the years are filed in there. Then I've got a whole bunch of reference books, Brewer's Phrase and Fable, Oxford Companion to English Literature, that visual dictionary that I love. There's a French dictionary, a rhyming dictionary, a thesaurus. These are the 2 volumes of the Oxford, shorter Oxford English Dictionary of Mitzvah Presents. That encyclopedia is a Mitzvah Present. That Shakespeare, Blue Words of Shakespeare, I think is my wife's. Then there's some Beatles stuff on the end there, that anthology book, and John Lennon in his own right, and Paul in his own right. Down here, Acropolis, Jeet Fowles was shortlisted for the Booker a few years ago. There's a couple of Paul Theroux's, some D.M. Thomas, some Dylan Thomas, no relation. Craig Thompson, both those are graphic novels, shouldn't really be here. The late Harry Thompson's book about the late Peter Cook. Fear and Loathing, a lovely beaten up audition with Fear and Loathing with Hunter, with Joel Scoff's artwork in it, love that. And then some Tolstoy, going all the way through to Amor Towles, Gentleman in Moscow, and Barbara Trapido's Brother of the More Famous Jack, great book. And some Henry Treece, and some Trollops. I'm running out of space for Trollops, so I've got that's the Barchester Chronicles, and the first 2 in the Palliser novels, and the third one is behind there. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I like showing off my classics, but there's just too much. I'm going to be reading more Trollops, so I have to make a decision what I'm going to do with that. And into Twain, no one talks about Twain very much. I've read a bunch of Twain. Everyone should read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. And then other stuff, Roughing It, Tramp Abroad, Life on the Mississippi. There's a whole bunch of Mark Twain's in there, and a whole bunch of Anne Tyler's, who again, one of my earliest first reads, Dinner at the Homesick Restaurant, The Accidental Tourist, played a major part in my reading life. Then we've got Jenny Aglow's biography of Lear, and a bunch of John Updike's, so the Rabbit Quartet, and then there's a 5th Rabbit novella in Licks of Love, and then I've got Beck and Couples, whole bunch of 100 Racks. There's more 100 Racks behind there. There's Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Cross trilogy. And there's Ocean Vuong, other bits. Oh, there's some David Foster Wallace, except my copy of Infinite Jest, as my son has a hold of. I don't know if I'll ever get that back. Some Fleabag on the end there. Not Fleabag. Then we've got Jasmine Ward, bit of Sarah Waters. There's that first Claire Faye Watkins, the short stories. That she's kind of spoken about very disparagingly since that, and I haven't read more of her. James D. Watson's The Double Helix, he's been cancelled sadly, but that's still a great book, from a Nobel Prize winner. Weitzman, a bit of Edith Wharton. My copy of The Age of Innocence went missing. My son lent it to one of his friends, never came back. Then some Colson Whitehead's, Leon Wieseltier's book on Kaddish, Oscar Wilde and Charles Willeford there at the end. A bit more Charles Willeford, John Williams, Tim Willocks, a bit of Tom Wolfe. I never read much, Beyond the Bonfire of the Vanities. What else? Daniel Woodrell, we like it, Daniel Woodrell. Only tiny little bit of Virginia Woolf. Elizabeth Wurtzel. Anyone remember Elizabeth Wurtzel? Prozac Nation was a big book when I was younger, and sad. And then Bitch is also a tremendous collection of essays. Really helped form my ideas of late 20th century feminism. Really strong read, and she sadly passed away a couple of years ago. There's Malcolm X, Hanya Yanagihara, all the way through down to the Z's, a bit of Nell Zink, through finishing with Marcus Zusak. Okay, then what we've got there, so that's, I'm stepping all the way back to show you. And then this door here is into what used to be my son's room. My son who got married and moved out, and so we've turned this into just an all-purpose storeroom. So this is, we'll come back to those pile of books there for a second, and we'll start, I'll put light on. We'll start over here with this. This is my, so these are the old Billy bookcases that used to be out in the living room, and these are the last two. We got rid of a couple of them. These are the last two remain, and this is where I keep my graphic novels because they're too big for the shelves. So starting all the way at the top there, on the right-hand side of the top of that shelf, are my diaries from 1983 through to about 1994. And at least the first 5 years of that, I was pretty assiduous about keeping a diary. It's just terribly boring teenage, oh, why am I so miserable, why won't she go out with me kind of stuff. There's some ardent Shakespeare's up there and a copy of the Greek works of Saki, I think, also. But then these are the graphic stuff, starting with a couple of Jason Aaron Star Wars books, John Allison. Then we've got a bunch of Brian Michael Bendis into Ed Brubaker, then some Chris Claremont. So yeah, also still, even the graphic novels are still filed by author. So there may be some Batman, this is Gotham Central, which is not really Batman stuff, but Batman does show up, but there's other Batman stuff based on a different author. So we got some Will Eisners going into Warren Ellis, the Global Frequency, and there's Early Authorities. And then we've got a whole bunch of Garth Ennis and some remote controls, and a bottle opener for some reason, Garth Ennis, some Matt Fraction, then the Neil Gaiman graphic stuff. So I've got a whole Neil Gaiman prose section in the other room, and this is his graphic section and some picture books. What else have we got here on the end? Tom King. And we've got some more Tom King there. We've got that complete run of the Omnivore Chews 1 through 6, a bit of Stan Lee, a whole bunch of Jeff Loeb, some Mike Mignola, and then we've got, let me check this out of the way. Oop. Then we've got some Mark Miller with an A going into Frank Miller with an E. And then we've got Rutu Mordan, is an Israeli graphic novelist, going into Alan Moore, a whole bunch of Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, and there's 5 Hilda books that I've got there. They're quite big. I'm collecting that James Robinson, there's Eric Powell's The Goon, James Robinson's Starman series, a bit of Greg Rucka. I've got a complete run of Jeff Smith's Bone here. I've got some Kevin Smith there, going into Scott Snyder's run on Batman, which have appeared a lot on this channel. There's the whole lot of that. Some Nick Spencer, the first 3 deluxe volumes of Morning Glories. Don't know if we'll ever see any more of that. 3 volumes of The Fix. Pretty sure we're never going to see any more of that. Yeah, so Nick Spencer started to annoy me because he doesn't finish things. I'd love to get more of those to the max editions of Lumberjanes. I've only got the one so far. They're hard to find at reasonable prices. Some Rising Stars, all the way through to Brian K. Vaughan, a bunch of Brian K. Vaughns. There's Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. I know he's been cancelled, but that's a terrific 4 volumes. And G. Willow Wilson's run on Ms. Marvel, and some Marv Wolfman stuff at the end, The Crisis on Infinite Earths and The Judas Contract. And down there we have a bunch of comics. And these are the comics that I collected way back when. So nothing terribly exciting and valuable. A few, there may be a few comics of value here. Some Dark Horse, some X-Force, and I do have a first appearance of Deadpool somewhere in there, and a few other bits and pieces, but nothing super valuable. And then we get to the dreaded TBR. So this is TBR starts up here. It's all of this. It's down here as well, but then there's some more comics underneath that. There's some more TBR, TBR down there, and TBR all over here, and that is just a horrible mess of a room, which I'm sure my wife will kill me for showing you. And that's it. That is my bookshelf tour in my 100th episode. Thank you very much for sticking around. Take care. God bless. Be well.